Morning, crew. Hope you're doing awesome. It's Alexa here, and I just wanted to get on for a moment and share with you about the diaphragm. So, I want to share more about this muscle, and I will be touching into it more as we go along in the program. But for today, I wanted to share a few things about how it relates to fascia and also how it relates to the breath and to that sympathetic parasympathetic nervous system piece that we worked on earlier. Um, as we get more into the program, the energetic module, the emotional module, we'll talk about the different roles as far as those aspects. But for today, like looking at the physicality of the diaphragm. So the diaphragm sits right in here, below the ribs. And essentially, I'm going to get you to take a little moment here and just cup your hands underneath your ribs and just take a little in-breath or a bigger in-breath and then an exhale. So take that breath in and let it go. And I want you to notice under your hands what happens with the diaphragm. So this is a very thin muscle, but very, very large in the surface area. So it actually sits underneath the ribs and it domes up like this. And then it comes and it attaches all the way, the transverse process of thoracic vertebrae 12 and lumbar 1, and then the 12th rib here through a ligament called the arcuate ligament, and then it comes up and under and attaches onto costal cartilages and xiphoid process in the front here. So huge attachment all the way around, and essentially the diaphragm, this one and the many others that we have in our body are pressure regulators. So they regulate the pressure in our different cavities. So for this one, you can imagine the effect that it has over the viscera. When we look at what's contained through this cavity, we have on the right hand side we have the liver directly underneath the diaphragm. On the left hand side we have the spleen directly under, and then the stomach sitting right here. Also there is attachments fascially up into the pericardium, so the surrounding of the heart, and also the lungs, so the fascia around the lungs. So you can imagine if there's a holding in the diaphragm or it's not functioning well, we get a change in not only the viscera and the pressure regulation within the upper torso and lower torso, like abdomen, and all the organs involved in that, but also we get a change in the heart and the function of the heart and the lungs, and then that pulling upwards further up into sort of the clavicle, the ribs, and then up into even the front of the neck and the base of the cranium. So I invite you to look at the fascial. There's an article just here about the fascial lines, and if you can take a moment just to have a look at that, it's quite fascinating. So essentially we have lines that run all the way from the feet to the cranium fascially, and attachments all the way up. So we want those lines to be working and moving, and our horses are the same. So with the diaphragm, we have three main diaphragms. We have our thoracic diaphragm. We also have the tentorium in the cranium. And then we have the pelvic diaphragm that we talked about a few weeks ago. That's super important for riders. And this thoracic diaphragm is, of course, important because our breath and our ability to breathe and be with our horses on this level is so crucial to our ability to relax, to process emotion, to regulate pressure. You can imagine that if we're building pressure in the abdomen, torso, and through the pelvic floor, our horses are going to notice that, especially if the diaphragm is stuck on what we call the inhale phase. My hands. Where the diaphragm actually flattens down. It goes from its dome shape, flattens down, and sometimes when we're really stressed, it'll stay there. It'll stay flattened, and then the pelvic diaphragm is the same. It'll stay flattened. So when we ride, and we're with our horses, they're noticing this tension, in the pelvic floor, in the rest of the body, because of course when we ride, we're moving, we need that pressure regulation to be happening so that everything can like do its thing, right? Otherwise we have rigidity. and the spine and the body. And so, yeah, we want that to be moving. So a couple things that we can do to help is, oh, and I'm going to talk about, so parasympathetic, sympathetic, that we talked about a few weeks ago. When we're in this, that tension phase, of course, that's sympathetic nervous system, stress nervous system, right? So if we get stuck there, and when we're like this and we exhale, we're in that parasympathetic. Yeah. Okay, so things that we can do to help the diaphragm. So one, we can get under the ribs and hang out with the diaphragm. Diaphragm loves to be listened to, just like every part of our body loves to be listened to. And we can just sit and do some nice inhales and exhales as we notice the diaphragm and its movement. So hopefully when we inhale, the diaphragm flattens, and when we exhale, it sort of draws back from our hands and goes into that dome shape again. So we want to feel it coming down into our hands here, and then releasing back up. Excellent. Good. So just, yeah, taking some time, even when you're in the saddle, when you're driving your car, whatever, taking some time to notice what your diaphragm is doing. Where does it stop? Where does it get stuck? You know, maybe when you ride, it gets a little sticky because of fear stuff coming up. Take some time, sit in the saddle. You don't have to go anywhere. Just take some time to get connected to your diaphragm, and also get connected to your horse's diaphragm. So it's sitting same place, back behind those ribs. Go in and palpate, and then you can just hang out at least on one side of the diaphragm and see, you know, how that breath feels. Is it coming back into your hands on the inhale, and is it kind of going away and back up into that dome on the exhale? And what we realize about horses, which is really cool, is they often will do syncopated breathing, meaning they're going to follow our breath and our breathing rate and our and the quality of our breath. So yeah, have some fun playing with that, going out, hanging with your horses, seeing what happens when you sort of increase the rate of breath and the tension in the breath, and then what happens when you kind of start to really relax the breath, maybe extend the lengths of the inhale, exhale, and start to play with that diaphragm, almost like you're working out the diaphragm a little bit. Yeah. It's a muscle that, you know, kind of, it's always working, obviously, automatically, thankfully. But it's nice to start to extend our range a little bit. And kind of like an opera singer training, right? That we can expand the length of the inhale, the length of the exhale. We can pause at the end of the breath. All these pieces start to come in where we change the range and the ability to relax and create relaxation through the breath. Yeah, cool. All right, everybody. Hope you're having a great week. This is the end of the physical module. Our next module is energy, and we'll be starting that next week. So yeah, can't wait to get going. And we'll see you very, very soon with more on that. This Wednesday, you'll be getting a webinar from me, from Heather Nelson. It's an awesome one on Liberty training. Yeah, that's it. See you all soon.